I think it's safe to say that 2024 didn't exactly go as planned for the Dallas Cowboys in a variety of ways. Obviously, Dak Prescott, who you're paying a shit ton of money to, he misses the second half of the season with an injury. You're like, well, that's not great, right? You got 20+% of your salary cap sitting on the bench, less than ideal. And you had lots of other injuries too. Demarcus Lawrence only played 4 games. Deron Bland played 7. Trayvon Diggs played 11 games. Micah Parsons played 13. So you had key guys, key positions missing games during the season. And these aren't just like pieces, right? Like these are notable impact players. Demarcus Lawrence, Deron Bland, Trayvon Diggs, Micah Parsons, all guys on their defense that can make an impact, make a difference, and they were gone for a large swath of the season. And then you're missing your starting quarterback for half the season. It's not a surprise that they ended up 7-10 and way back of the Eagles and the Commanders in that NFC East divisional race. And even for the Cowboys, they finished 2-7 at home. Not good, right? Not good. It was a bad season. It was kind of a lost season for them in a lot of ways, and led to the end of the Mike McCarthy era in Dallas. And I'm sure a lot of Cowboys fans are happy about that. It could be one of those things of they're right, but it also could be one of those things of be careful what you wish for, because you just might get it, because what you get instead is a promotion within and the hiring of promotion of Brian Schottenheimer to be the team's head coach. Does that exactly elicit a whole lot of excitement out of you? I think not. And then I look at the defense, and this is more of a funny thing and a smart-ass thing to me than anything else. But you look at your defense, they kind of stunk last year, especially as all the injuries came into play. So your solution was to hire the scarecrow Matt Eberflus. You wanted to bring that hits philosophy to Chicago. Bears football! And how appropriate. The Bears of Texas, the Dallas Cowboys, so you're talking about shit, what, that happened 30 years ago, your old glory days? Fuck all that shit. They hired Matt Eberflus as their defensive coordinator. Good luck with that. I bet Micah Parsons took one look and told his agent, oh, they do want to come to a deal in Dallas? Not so fast, in honor of Lee Corso. Not so fast. He said, fuck all that. But you had some notable departures for the Cowboys this offseason, right? Zach Martin retired. In a few years, we should be hearing his name called as first ballot Hall of Famer. And if it's not, something's really went wrong with the process, which is already kind of a stupid process as it is. He's probably one of the top 4 to 5 offensive guards of all time. It's not like recency bias. Zach Martin was that great for that long. He needs to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. And even if you were talking about injuries and being at the end of his career, like that guy still provided leadership and a presence. Like he was still a guy to account for. And it's hard when you lose a guy like that from your team. You had Jordan Lewis and DeMarcus Lawrence depart via free agency. So, even though you went without Lawrence for most of the season, you lose both of them. And then obviously the big news that broke in the past few days around Micah Parsons being traded to the Green Bay Packers in exchange for Kenny Clark and 2 future first-round picks. I've just said a lot of things already about this Micah Parsons deal and how stupid Jerry Jones looks in this, and he certainly does. Here's the one thing, though, I didn't bring up. I was just thinking about yesterday, and I said, you know what? It feels appropriate to mention this because it was a similar argument you could make for the Raiders several years back when they did trade Khalil Mack. It's like, yeah, you've got this great Pro Bowl, all-pro level player as an edge rusher, but your defense still stinks. So if they stink with them, they can stink without them, save money, and get future draft pick capital. Where's the downside to this? You know what? That is a fair argument to make for this Micah Parsons deal. Now, you could say there were other injuries and this and that, and that's true, including him missing a few games. But the reality is, even with Micah Parsons, this was not a very good defensive unit last year. So what the fuck difference does it make? Now, it's easy to say that, but it certainly makes a difference. But I hope you kind of get the point I'm driving home here, right? It's like there's one angle there to say why they made this deal. Why pay him $40+ million a year if your defense is still going to suck, and now that hamstrings your ability to invest additional resources to improving that defense? It's a fair point. It's a fair counterpoint. They made other moves this offseason. They traded for George Pickens, Kyer Elam, Kenneth Murray. So they were very active in the trade market. They signed Jack Sanborn to be their starting middle linebacker, familiarity with the Eberflus hits philosophy. Brought in Dante Fowler Jr., Javonte Williams, and Miles Sanders in that backfield. Um, then they signed Deron Bland and Osa Odigizua to big contract extensions. The Bland one just went down the other day. Didn't have money for Micah Parsons, but had money for those guys. Just interesting. Interesting is all I'll say. So a lot of change there in the roster. Some big notable moves at that. And then you look at this NFL draft. Tyler Booker was drafted maybe a little bit higher than I thought he was going to be. Drafted maybe more in the 18 to 24 range, but hard to knock them for that pick. You just lost Zach Martin due to retirement, and you have a young offensive line. Bring in somebody that's legit, and I think Tyler Booker is legit. Should be a high-level starter, potentially a multiple-time Pro Bowler at guard for a decade for this team. And then you got Donovan Ezeraku, edge rusher from Boston College that they took in round 2. He was a highly productive guy. So you lose DeMarcus Lawrence. You now lose Micah Parsons. You bring in Donovan from Boston College. You hope that he can fill some of that void. Siobhan Ravel Jr., he's coming back from injury, but at some point in time, he should be a guy that could take the Jordan Lewis spot in this secondary. I actually liked what the Cowboys did in this draft. They addressed needs with their first 3 picks. They got talent that was pretty good in terms of where they took them, so it was decent work by this Cowboys front office. Looking ahead to this season, though, how does this roster stack up for the Cowboys? Their biggest strengths, I look at the receiving core. You've got CeeDee Lamb, he's a stud. George Pickens comes in via trade. Jalen Tolbert, Ferguson. That's a pretty solid core of receiving talent for Dak Prescott to throw to. It's certainly not the best in the league, but there are a lot of teams that would take that receiving group. They absolutely would. Then you look at their interior O-line. You've got Tyler Smith, thought had a solid season last year, as did Cooper Beebe as a third-round pick rookie. And then you're plugging in Tyler Booker at right guard, and I assume he's going to hit the ground running. The interior of that offensive line, I think, is pretty solid. And I look at the middle of their defense right now. If you traded for Kenny Clark, you've given Odigizua a long-term contract extension, so you should be pretty good at the defensive tackle spot. You brought in Sanborn, who I thought was a little underutilized. I always looked at Jack Sanborn this is for the benefit of Cowboys fans, and I looked at him and I said, what does Tremaine Edmonds do at middle linebacker that is so much better than Jack Sanborn that it justifies him being paid 10 plus times more than Sanborn is? Never got it. I didn't see it, right? Sanborn's solid. I think Cowboys fans will like him. Then you look at that secondary and the safety group between Malik Hooker and Wilson. They're not superstars, but they're solid. There's competence there in the middle of that defense, just like in the middle of that offensive line. Then I look at their special teams. Aubrey was a Pro Bowl kicker last year. Brian Anger was solid. Devontae Turpin certainly had a good year as a returner. So when you talk about those things that can make a difference in games, and sometimes it's the special teams, and the Cowboys are in a pretty good position there. But still several question marks for me. How many games will Dak Prescott play in 2025? If he does make it through the whole season, how will he play? I think those are fair questions. The running game. When you're looking at Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders as your top 2 running backs, you were in a bad spot in a bad way. And I'm just really surprised that the Cowboys didn't do something to try and more effectively address that position in the offseason. As much as I talked about the interior of that offensive line, I look at the offensive tackles and I say Tyler Guyton and Tyler Steele didn't have good 2024s. You need to see them take a step forward in 2025 so that doesn't become a huge need and a big need to address in the 2026 offseason. And then their run defense. I did mention that they're solid up the middle, but they weren't great against the run last year. And I'll wait to see how well Kenny Clark's going to play in this new team and new system. Run defense could be a problem. I mean, it's an Eberflus-led defense, so why wouldn't it be? Just like coverage can be a problem, just like everything at times can be a fucking problem under his defense. When you look at this team, though, I really think it's one of these things where I know there's probably going to be a lot of people that say, with Dak coming back, a new head coach and everything else, they'll do better this year. I don't buy it. I just don't. I feel like the Micah Parsons deal was representative of something, an acknowledgement maybe even by this front office that this team isn't close, isn't in a spot where they really can contend. And I'm sorry, when you look at this team, they just don't stack up well against the Commanders and the Eagles in this division. I don't think they do. I think this is like a 7-win team, even if Dak plays all year. And for the past few years, I thought the Cowboys have a pretty good roster. But I think going from Mike McCarthy to Brian Schottenheimer is a step down. I think trading away Micah Parsons is definitely a step down. You lose Zach Martin. I don't care if you drafted Tyler Booker or not. That's still a step down. Um, yeah, I think this is a bit of a transition year and a middle of the road year for this organization. I don't see them right now being in the mix in that division, even though they're going to get the John Cena spot from the NFL. I almost said the WWE. What the fuck's the difference? Because no matter what, they're going to pound the Cowboys in those featured games and those primetime slots every week because, oh, they bring the fans. Well, if you've been propagandizing this fucking team for 30, 40 years and telling people this is the only team to watch, the only team that matters, well then of course naturally it's going to. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, a fucking doom loop, if you will. So we'll have to sit there and hear way too much talk about the Cowboys, who are going to be, from a performance standpoint, in my opinion, kind of irrelevant here in 2025.